Hi everyone, in today's video going to look at common long run mistakes. Now there are loads and loads of ways that things can go slightly awry during your long runs. Really essentially we want to make sure that they're as top quality as possible, as ever appropriate to the rest of your training and the context of the marathon you're training for and your fitness relative to your goals. Now I'm going to start with one of the big issues that I tend to see, and some people will find this maybe a bit of a nag or that I'm being very anti-parkrun, but I'm not. That said, parkrun is a big issue for long runs. Often I see people putting it in as a parkrun sandwich, which, outside of marathon training, go for it, absolutely fine. However, when you're trying to train for a marathon, you've got this big target in mind, you really need to make those consistent long runs happen. It is the most important run of your week, and I will do a whole separate video on how you can include parkrun most sensibly, or, again, some of the pitfalls and how you might overcome them as much as possible. Quick rundown, however, is that if you're doing it as a parkrun sandwich, you've got the stop time before the parkrun starts. Now, even if you go, right, I'm going to bang on stop at 9 o'clock, often there's a couple of minutes delay in most park runs. Very rarely when I've been, which granted isn't a huge number of times, it's often 3-4 minutes, sometimes longer, some of the bigger events where people take ages to come over from the assembly point to the start point. Also, you've then got the finish time. Now again, there is always some sort of finishing funnel of some sort, sometimes much longer walk back between getting your chip and then getting that scanned, or getting your barcode scanned before you then finish. Now you can end up walking behind people who are absolutely cooked, having worked really hard. You're then sat there kind of going, come on, get along. It feels a bit like a funeral march sometimes. You kind of really want to get going so you can get your barcodes going and just get on. If we look at those two things, you can easily spend 7-8 minutes or more, and I've seen a lot more than this either side, especially if someone comes over and they go, oh, how you doing? And want to have a chat. It feels kind of awkward and it's kind of rude to some degree to go, sorry, I've got to go, see you later. Because you don't want to be rude and prioritise your one over having a conversation, because social relationships are important as well. People do parkrun. However, we do need to get on with it. So that's parkrun. There are things we can work around that, but try and avoid that. Try and use your warm book cooldown where you can. Try and have as few stops as possible with that and just get on with it. Don't go too mad at it either. Do take a nice sensible parkrun effort, either as your warm or your cooldown ideally. Now, other mistakes. Often people do too rigid on their sessions. So you want to go into it with no judgment. If you can get the mileage done, that is your biggest priority. So you're going up 17 miles and you've got a bit of a pyramid session to do. You hit the peak, and you go, oh, I'm working really quite hard here. It's very hot, it's very windy. You've hit a bad planned route and you've hit a really hilly section. Don't worry, go with the effort level. If that's meant to be your marathon pace, effort, that is what matters. So rather than running, bang on 8-minute miles, let it be 8:10 per mile, 8:15 per mile. If that's what it needs to be to get you done and to get you through that pyramid effort, fine. The pyramid at the effort level is more important. So the effort, the heart rate, that's the key thing. It's not necessarily about pace. Marathons very rarely are that flat. So you will have some peaks and troughs in this. Work with it, that is absolutely fine. So be flexible with yourself to a certain degree, but obviously don't be too complacent either. Go, that's all right, every single week, a few times every now and again, but otherwise you might need to look at route planning and making some other selections, or planning different sessions. Now, route selection is a really key thing. A few times I've seen people going to very hilly courses and they're really not preparing well from the top. For instance, Loch Ness. Now it's overall downhill, but there is still a decent amount of elevation within that route, and the downhill itself poses a huge challenge. So if you're going to be dropping around about 800 feet over the course of something like the Loch Ness Marathon, you need to do a lot of downhill training, either in your midweek runs or ideally in your long run as well. Doing lots of up and downs, even at marathon pace, coming downhill and lovely and slow and easy on the way up, that is absolutely fine. But training appropriately, planning routes and session types that are going to make sure that you are absolutely ready for that marathon you're going to do. Another issue is coming down to warming up far too quick. Now, I've seen this time and time again, and it's something I've managed to kind of work on with people really quite successfully actually over the last couple of years, where they've gone into the long runs and week after week after week, in the training plans, we catch up every 4 weeks, and 2 or 3 weeks later you go, oh, what's happened there? Why have those all been a little bit off in the last miles? And it's almost stomach a bit upset, or, oh, really could have had no energy. You go, right, but your warm-up was 20 seconds a mile quicker than it had planned to be. That's why. And inevitably, when they then take that on board and they do slow down, even the next long when they do, sometimes only 2 or 3 days after our conversation, inevitably energy levels, the stomach upsets are largely gone, if not completely, but they're working much, much more sensibly because they're not getting their heart rate, their lactate, everything else kind of going far too hard, too quick. Their body has time to adapt and they can really build into that long run. You wouldn't go out all guns blazing in a marathon. Why would you in a training run? Especially when you've got all the fatigue of marathon training in your legs and in your body. The other thing, the final thing we look at is race hydration and nutrition. Often people aren't practicing this very, very well at all. Either they're not taking on enough, or if they are taking it on, they're having stops to do so, or they're not taking on at race pace. Now, any of these things are a problem. If you combine them, if you have lack of fuel and hydration, you're really going to have an issue. But if you're working on a small amount of hydration and fueling and you can't take on a race pace, or you're stopping to do so, and you haven't planned it into your race pacing strategy, you're really going to have some issues on race day. So you either need to work on working at taking that at race pace. If you can't do that, adjust your plan or keep on practicing, get better and better and better at it. There will, however, come a time where in maybe the final weeks that's still not clicking, adjust the strategy. Try switching to drinks rather than gels. Try switching to gels rather than chews, or adopting a run walk strategy where you walk through your drink stations, where you walk every couple of miles to take on a gel or a drink. Absolutely fine if you need to do that. You're better off doing that and making sure you do get in that hydration and nutrition rather than just trying to push on, I must keep running all the time. Walks are fine. You're not going to lose necessarily loads of time. It's not helpful ideally, but you're not necessarily going to lose loads of time, and it's certainly better to keep on taking fuel in as much as you can rather than just stopping or going, oh, you know what, I can't take it on right now, I'm still running, I'll leave it, because you're going to really struggle in race day if that happens. So those are just some of the long run mistakes I commonly see. There are loads and loads more, and no doubt you will have made some more. I know I have. So don't worry about it. Don't judge yourself if you are making these mistakes. This is all meant to be very supportive and giving you some ideas of things to look out for. Things you may be, kind of are doing that at the moment that you maybe don't realise, or that you self-identify having watched this and go, need to work on that. Either way, it's absolutely fine. Again, if we're aware of something, we can work on and improve upon it. Either way, have the best of luck with the marathon training. See you soon.